News.
This is the best in talk radio. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.
Generosity changes your life. Outrageous generosity will outrageously change your life. It changes the way your eyes look. It changes the way you walk. It changes the way you relate to others. It changes your career track. It changes the way you teach and work with employees. It changes the way you work while you're at work for your employer. It changes your life.
Evenings on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Cache Valley Pharmacy. On the bi-monthly direct link with Governor Spencer J. Cox that was heard on KVNU last evening, the governor was asked for his response to President Biden's administration's restoration of environmental protections for Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante national monuments in Utah.
So it's deeply disappointing because this is what we come to is this ping-ponging of monuments now, where a Democrat comes in and to satisfy their base and their donors, they expand these monuments, and now then a Republican president comes in and shrinks them, and now we've seen a Democrat come back in and expand them again.
The governor said even more troubling is that it does not do what the administration wants it to do.
These lands were already protected under federal statute. By designating them a national monument, there are no additional resources that come to these monuments. That can only be done through Congress. And so what they've done and what we found with the original Bears Ears proclamation is that it puts a bullseye there for visitors from all over the world to come, and yet there's no resources. So there are no additional law enforcement. There's no visitor center. There's nowhere for people to come, and it's actually been more destructive.
The governor said that they have seen more destruction to antiquities and more vandalism, something that Native American tribes and local residents do not want. A direct link is sponsored by the Utah Broadcasters Association and is heard every other month on News Talk KVNU. News time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, slight chance of rain and snow showers this evening, then a chance of rain and snow showers after midnight, low in the mid-20s. Slight chance of snow showers Thursday morning, and then just mostly cloudy skies, high temperature in the lower 40s, partly cloudy and around 50 degrees on Friday. It's been to 47. It's 44 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering. They will stabilize, lift, and eliminate further settling by using Magnum Piering products to save you big money down the road. Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering are the foundation lifting experts. Visit poly-lift.com to schedule your free assessment or call or text 435-999-9309. Polylift is locally owned and operated.
This is Phil from Cache Valley Pharmacy. Don't let anyone tell you where you have to go to get your prescriptions. At Cache Valley Pharmacy, we would love to earn your business. Transferring your prescriptions is as easy as one phone call. Cache Valley Pharmacy offers free delivery valley-wide with compounding services and the best prices. We are the choice for prescriptions. Locally owned for 19 years, and we will be here for years to come. Visit CacheValleyPharmacy.com. Cache Valley Pharmacy, your new pharmacy.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. The governor and the Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson issued an executive order yesterday granting all state executive branch employees 4 hours of administrative leave to address mental health issues. A recent CDC survey found that nearly 41% of respondents reported an adverse mental or behavioral health condition such as anxiety, depression, loneliness, or increased substance use. In addition, a Society for Human Resource Management survey found that work-related concerns left more than 40% of employees feeling hopeless, burned out, or exhausted. And rapper, music producer, and clothing entrepreneur Kanye West is selling his ranch and business properties in northwestern Wyoming. His West Ranch went on the market Monday for $11 million. The property covers 6 square miles of open land, tree-studded hills, and outcrops south of Cody, Wyoming. The city of about 10,000 is near Yellowstone National Park. The Cody Enterprise reports the listing comes after West listed 7 commercial properties in Cody for more than $3.2 million. West moved to Wyoming in 2019 and is estranged from wife Kim Kardashian West, who filed for divorce this year. It was not clear if the property sales mean that West is leaving Wyoming or just reorganizing his business there. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Covering all the news. Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. News Talk KVNU.
Hey, it's Al Lewis. We all know buttons make our lives easier. But if you have sleep apnea and can't use CPAP, did you know there's a button that can help you go from this to this? It's called Inspire. It's a small device that works inside your body with just the click of a remote. That's right, a button. If you struggle with CPAP, great sleep awaits at InspireSleep.com. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
Yeah. And you say Shy City? Shy City? Shy City? I'm coming home again. Do you think about me now and then? Yeah. Do you think about me now and then? 'Cause I'm coming home again. I met this girl when I was 3 years old, and what I love most, she had so much soul. She said, "Excuse me, little homie."
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, Hour 2 of today's show, Wednesday, October 13th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well, and we are kicking off Hour 2 of today's show with some special guests here in the studio. Last week, we had a chance to speak with the CEO of the development company behind a project that's kind of underway in Providence, and it has resulted in a debate in Providence that is then itself, that debate resulted in a citizen-driven proposition or a citizen-driven opposition to the proposition. So last week, we had a chance to hear the what we call maybe the pro side. That was the side saying the people should vote for Proposition 1. And we'll talk more about what Proposition 1 says here in a bit. Today we're joined by the no side, the don't vote for Proposition 1 side. So joining us here in the studio, and we're glad we were able to steal you back from Full Court Press over there. Those guys, man, if we turn our backs on them. Providence resident Gary Wilkinson, and also joining him here in the studio, Josh Paulsen. And to you both, appreciate you coming in. I know no one wants to be the official spokesperson on, citizen-driven efforts like this. You have a group of citizens of a city that are getting behind something, and it's not the same as when it's a full-fledged political campaign, when there's a manager and a communications team and all of that. So you guys are putting yourselves out here willingly to be in the spotlight, and everyone be nice about it. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. No, it's a great thing to see, because this is what these debates are about, right? Getting people engaged and thinking about and trying to answer some of these questions in their own head. I won't try to do it myself because I probably will do it wrong. One of you, if you can, start us off. Explain what opposition to Prop 1 is, if you had to put it in a sentence or two.
Sure. So, yeah, people may recognize my name. I'm Josh Paulsen. I'm actually on the City Council in Providence, but I do want to point out that my opinion and position on this is as an independent citizen and not a member of the City Council. But, I think I was, a couple of years ago when this issue was raised, was voted into the City Council largely because there was opposition to the existing City Council and this particular issue in dealing with high density in Providence. So I've been grateful to work with the residents in Providence on this and to listen to them and try to understand how we properly develop our city. So to answer your question, in a sentence or two, the no vote for Proposition 1 is about not continuing this development, which includes a fair amount of high density in Providence City. And the reason that we believe that should be a no vote is because this development is so large and significant that it substantially and fundamentally changes the character of Providence City. It's not a small development. In fact, it constitutes nearly 20% growth in Providence with one single development. And that's a lot. Imagine something in Logan like, one housing development, increasing household size by 20%. That's pretty significant for us. And it's the last piece of agricultural land, actually, of significant size in Providence. We really have two kind of swaths of land left that really need to be built out to this degree. So the vote no is we invite people to go actually drive over and see the development, to walk through, see what's been built, decide whether or not you like it. I always tell people that you don't have to vote yes or no, but you ought to go ahead and look and drive over there on Spring Creek Parkway and see what it's like and see what's being built. Because I think about a third of it's built right now. We're almost ready to have 2/3 built as part of this proposition, additional 2/3 built. So the nice thing is, with this referendum, citizens actually been able to see what's going up now. Other than that, had it been voted upon, they wouldn't be able to see that. And our no vote really constitutes, we believe, that residents ought to have a very clear idea what's going to go into their neighborhoods before it's being built. And with this particular proposition, the way the zoning was, the developer was given much more latitude and control over that. So it was difficult for people to know exactly. I'm glad to see the developer, I think, is kind of committed to a plan, and I would expect to hold his feet to the fire on that if it did pass, that's what would go there, because I think that's what residents should expect to see. But personally, I find it a little claustrophobic and a little bit too significant in terms of changing the character of a neighborhood. Is it
the size of the overall development that brings the opposition, or is it the type of housing that's going in there?
I think citizens have different opinions on this.
Okay.
And Gary and I may have different opinions, and that's okay. Gary, you're happy to go ahead and comment on that.
Yeah. I just want to clarify too. I am a citizen of River Heights, but I'm an attorney representing. Yes. I just want to make sure
you told me you're an attorney. No, they're not going to listen anymore.
Yeah, now everyone's going to shut this off.
Tell me you're a former UCSS basketball player, and then maybe they'll listen to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did call you a Providence resident.
But that's okay. I just want to make sure there's full candor here, so I'm not felt misled by my stance. But I
you're plugged in very, very intimately with all this.
Yes, I'm right across the street from the development. But I think one of the things that is challenging for this development is the infrastructure. I mean, with high density housing, one of the things that you want to plan for is the ability to access the property and whether you are going to be able to access the property. If you go visit development, like Josh said, I think you'll get a good idea of if you're increasing the population or the overall household size by 20%. You only have 2 roads to access this property, and one of them doesn't even sit in Providence. So you don't even know what River Heights is going to do to allow access to such a sizable development. And so you have to go where it makes sense to develop such a substantial development. And in here, it doesn't make sense to develop that type of population in that area.
Okay. Is there an alternative? Is there? I don't know. I don't know Providence well enough to to guess at
I
this.
I completely believe there is. When we started this project, maybe it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Boy, it's been a long time since we started the referendum.
Can we pause there for a second? Because I just want to say this about that. That, I think, is a good thing. Both sides now have sort of almost apologized for that, saying, wow, this has gone on for years. I actually think that's a good thing. I think when it comes to these types of decisions, a longer process is going to lead to less opportunity to look back 20 years from now and go, oh, wow, I wish we hadn't done that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad
The
you bring that
debate
up because
is
I think
healthy.
so too, particularly when you're dealing with something of a greater magnitude, right? I mean, we have heuristics to make really quick, short decisions, but large decisions we have discussion and debate and civil dialogue to figure out to make sure we do the right one. Because once you do it, you're not undoing
the
it.
planning's so
you know?
important. When you drive through parts of the Wasatch Front where this planning didn't happen, where we weren't looking 5-10 years ahead, and there's no great thoroughfare. It's 25 mile an hour to get everywhere. People are boxed in. It wasn't planned, and we can avoid that. Regardless of which side you sit on this proposition, the debate is, I think, really healthy.
Yeah, very good point. The debate is healthy, and thank you for helping facilitate it.
Oh, glad to be here.
You know, as we talk about that, one of the things that comes to mind is, oh boy, my train of thought got.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
That's okay.
We were talking about alternatives.
Yes,
potential
alternatives.
alternatives.
Thank you. Yeah, alternatives to this. I do believe there are alternatives. You know, even 2 years later, I need to acknowledge, I think everyone does, wow, have we seen an explosion in housing prices in Cache Valley, you know, literally within the last year. Yeah. And it's not just land prices, too, though. A lot of people need to understand that construction costs have skyrocketed, and so we have a huge inflection point here that has caused these huge spike in housing. We've had, exigents from California coming here and plopping down big money for houses, you know, so all those things has created a perfect storm where we've seen housing prices skyrocket. Now, a lot of people would say, okay, great, we need to go ahead and react to that. We need to respond to that. We need more housing stock so people can actually live here. I think as a city council member, and I don't mean to speak for Gary, I think he'd probably say, yeah, we do. We need more housing. But I think the alternative is I would rather see medium and in some cases high-density housing peppered throughout our cities rather than like wholesale done. I mean, I drove by a pretty significant development on the way down to the radio station here that has felt like it has popped up overnight. You know,
it kind of did.
It kind of popped up overnight. Yeah, and
it was fast.
And looking at that and not knowing the people that live around here, we have another one in Providence that did that a couple years ago. I think, wow, that's a lot of density in one area really, really quickly. And
now that's a huge. I don't know how many units. This one, what we were told last week, at least, this is 8 in Providence. Is that correct?
Is
that
8 units?
8. The dense part of this is.
Oh, they're talking about
8 units.
So Visionary would claim how many units per acre do they have, and that's the number they use. And I think it's 8 point something, as they would say, which is relatively small if you take the entire development. But what we've introduced there over those acres is, like I said, an additional almost 400 housing units in
addition to those.
In
8.
addition, into an interior part of Providence, and that's pretty significant. I always use this example because I grew up in Holiday before, in Salt Lake area, before Holiday was like
it's a crowded area.
Crowded, but not to mention like $1 million homes. You know, my parents bought one. I think their home for $75,000 or something, and we remodeled it a few times, and they're probably one of the last few old houses around there. But a lot of people don't realize that peppered around these really wealthy areas are apartment complexes. There are several. I had friends live in them, you know, people in our ward or neighborhood, and they worked really well. The setbacks were really good. They were, you know, they had maybe 30 units or something, and they were peppered throughout the city, and they were integrated really, really well. They were done right off of a major thoroughfare, so people could get in and out of them. And that, I think, works well, and I think it's a better alternative. I think when you visit this area, what you'll see is, because it's an enormous planned unit development, you're going to see road widths that are much, much smaller than a standard road width. I drive it down almost weekly just to see how it's going. I drove down the other day, and I saw a lovely woman and her child that had moved in there and bought a home, and I was so grateful that, you know, they had a place to live. But she was there on this busy street with cars lined both sides, barely enough space for one car to go in the middle, trying to take her child and move him around on like a little car around the neighborhood, because it was just so difficult to do in that space. And I would rather see these developments done medium. and potentially high density in smaller areas and smaller projects that are integrated into existing communities. And I don't think that's what this is, but I think the developer would probably say, well, no, this is great integration. I would invite you to go look at it and decide if that's the case. I personally don't feel that way.
Yeah, and I think you can make an assessment for yourself as to whether this development sufficiently addresses those issues. And for me personally, I think a lot of people, developers specifically, want the people to believe that density equals affordability, and to be honest, the Cato Institute, using U.S. Census data, did a study which resulted in a negative correlation between density and affordability, meaning that they don't equal each other. And in fact, most states that have tried to use this up, not out mentality have actually seen an increase in housing prices, not a decrease. And so I think that when we talk about housing prices, not to the construction industry with costs of materials and stuff is an outlier with respect to this issue, but scarcity drives up cost, and developers make more money the more doors they can put in an area, less impact fees. So if I get a piece of property that has 15 acres and I can put 30 single family homes or 150 high density doors in there, I'm going to make more money based on that. And so it's an easy spin to say, well, I get more houses. It's because when I get more houses, you pay less per house. But I think one of the things that we could take a look at and say, well, there's a reason why there's a scarcity in maybe townhomes or more accessible properties is because there's a scarcity in single family homes. So if developers were more willing to build single family homes than try to pack more density in, then people would move out of the townhomes and into those single family homes. There'd be less scarcity and they'd drive the costs down, and then people would be able to gain access to those more accessible, affordable properties.
Sure.
And so that's one of the discussions that we're not having here is like, well, scarcity is an issue, but if we build more single family homes, not trying to pack as many doors into a plat of land and just build out homes, then these people will have places to go, and other people will be able to move in and migrate through this cycle of building and moving into areas that they want to be in.
Long term, though, when you're looking at projections of doubling population growth, and it's not coming from migration, it's people born here and wanting to stay. Long term, we're going to have to pack some in, right?
Yeah, but we are. But Gary, I think you bring up a good point. We absolutely are. But developers are incentivized right now to only utilize existing infrastructure because that's where the greatest profit margins are. So Gary's point is we have additional land here in Cache Valley we could build on, but it's more costly because we have to go ahead and put infrastructure out to it.
Makes sense.
So I guess my argument against that would be if we start creating density now in all of our existing communities, we create density later, we will just end up with double density in our existing areas and the new areas. If we tried to manage that a little bit better, we might have some areas that actually remain single family neighborhoods and future areas that have high density. So it's going to happen either way.
Sure.
The sooner you start it, the sooner it's going to be here. And I would like to think that as a valley, there are some areas that we want to try to preserve some character in existing neighborhoods, and heaven forbid, preserve a little bit of open space and land. I'm not a fan of these PUDs where the only open space they have is they're using retention ponds to go ahead and collect rainwater, and they're calling that recreation space. I have one of those in my neighborhood, and half the time it's not usable because it has near standing water in it. And I haven't been to this one yet, but I worry about that as well. In my mind, that's not creating open space within Providence by just using land that they have to create a detention pond anyway. So I guess that would kind of be the counter argument to high density it's going to happen. Why start now in some of our areas?
Sorry, I don't mean to cough through your comment there. I took a sip of my drink and went down the wrong hole. So we're going to take a quick break while I take care of that. But appreciate you both being here. Josh Paulsen and Gary Wilkinson here in the studio presenting the Against Proposition 1 side, a debate playing out in Providence right now. We'll be back right after this.
With D.L. Evans Bank Digital Services, everything you need to manage your money is right there in the palm of your hand, the click of your mouse. the tap of your tablet. Transferring funds, depositing checks, even opening new accounts or taking out a loan are just a click away. We're right there with you, where you are, so you can spend a little less time banking and a little more time living. This is banking for here and now. This is Community Banking, D.L. Evans Bank.
We need more attainable housing in Utah and Cache Valley. Today, more than 50% of Utahns can't afford to buy their home in their own neighborhood because of rising prices. Where does that put our first-time homebuyers, our children and grandchildren? Proposition 1 will help bring much-needed attainable housing to Providence and to Cache Valley. Vote for Proposition 1. Paid for by Complete Vineyard for Providence.
The expert with a green thumb. It's the Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
What can you use on squash? The bugs and worms and everything are eating and killing them.
There are some very safe alternatives to use for insects, and it's called Lawn Shield. And the Lawn Shield is made for mosquitoes, especially in your lawn. But I use it in my vegetable garden. It works amazing, and it just repels the insects, makes them go away.
Thank you.
The Garden Guide, Saturday mornings at 8 on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Bit off the clock here. We had to take a break while I nearly choked to death. Took a sip of my drink while these guys are talking and went down the wrong hole. I'm going to be fine. Nobody worry. Joined in the studio by two very special guests. And I want to say this again. These are folks who, are putting themselves out here in the spotlight in order to explain their side of an issue, a debate that's playing out in Providence right now. And I love seeing this. I love citizens getting involved. I know Providence gets... People like to crack jokes about Providence. The politics can get a little heated there at times. But, to see people engaged in caring about the future of something as important as housing planning, I like it. So thank you to both of you for being here. And again, Josh Paulsen of the Providence City Council and Gary Wilkinson, an attorney who is intimately involved with some of the discussions and debate over this development in Providence that, correct me if I'm wrong, this development is, I have the impression it's half underway. It's like some of it has been built, and then there's a lot more planned. Is that a fair characterization?
So
okay.
17 acres has been built out right now.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
And I think there's 31 acres left to be developed that's up on referendum.
Okay.
And so I think...
What just quickly, what happens if... So if you guys are successful at getting the public to en masse shoot this Proposition 1 down, what happens then? What would you like to have happen then?
So essentially what the referendum does, if voters vote no on Prop 1, then it was essentially that the land is now unincorporated. And they have to go back through the incorporation process. Is that Josh is more
that's correct. It initially came to River Heights,
right.
And because it borders both those, and River Heights accepted it, and then they found out what they wanted to build, and they said no, we're not interested. Then it came to Providence, and we said yes in two parts. The first part went through, and the second part was subject to referendum.
Okay.
So it was purchased or brought in for annexation as agricultural land. So it would go back to agricultural land, unincorporated, and I think this is significant because sometimes I drive by and I see signs saying, "Oh, this is about landowner rights," and I fundamentally disagree with that one. Because the land was purchased as agricultural land, you bought the land with the rights to go ahead and put alfalfa, a cow, or horse, or something else on it. Now, I think we can both acknowledge it's impractical. That's all that you'd want to do with it. But you came to the city and you said, "We'd like additional rights. We're interested in doing this." So my hope would be that they'd come back. I think I'd still like the land in Providence. I think I'd like to see a housing project in there. I'd be open even for me personally, I'd be even open to a PUD. But I'd like the developer to be bound by the proposal that they have. Technically, the developer has a proposal, but they're not bound by that. Like, if this gets annexed in, they could change their mind tomorrow and say, well, we want twice as many apartments, twice as many condos. I forget what the exact calculation would be, but they're not bound to that. And I think that's unfair for the citizens to not know what's going to happen.
So you want something written
I want something
in stone.
they're committed to, written in stone. And I think that is reasonable for a community to expect. A lot of people don't realize that housing development works that way. A developer will get a piece of land, they'll get it under contract, but it's contingent upon a zoning, because as soon as the zoning happens, the price of that land goes up significantly. So it may be more advantageous for a developer to say, well, we could sell it off and have another developer do it, and they may not be as. I mean, I think Visionary's been a great developer. They've been forthcoming in what they want to do, but there's no legal commitment to them to build what they have proposed there.
Well, and to speak to the issue of landowner rights as well, like the idea, and I think most people agree with this, is all rights are subject to the voice of the people. So when you want to talk about landowner rights or any other right, you have to evaluate that against the backdrop of what the people actually want. Whether
I cannot build a nuclear facility on my property in Hiram.
That's correct.
I've asked. No, I haven't. But that's a great extreme example. But it's an example.
But I think the reality of it is just any developer, and especially in Cache Valley, you purchase property, and there's an assumption of risk that what you want to do with that property is subject to what people want you to do with that property, and that's the risk that you assume when you develop land. So if you want,
especially when you're talking housing, because Providence has a long-term, what are we calling it, life cycle zoning.
Well, that is no longer in the code. That's been taken out. The life cycle residency, which was instilled to allow this property to be developed, which was removed after this happened with the installation of the new city council. Was that correct, Joe?
Not exactly, but there was a bit of a moratorium on it, if you will, not official, but bit frozen, because this is a touchy issue, and residents were clear that they weren't very interested in that. So I believe it is still in city code. It's not used very often, and fortunately now we have a master plan that I think the city has been involved in. The residents, they've seen that, and it kind of says here's where we see the zoning to go throughout the city. So I'm much more comfortable with development now than I was shooting from the hip.
I think it's a sign that when this was brought before the city council, who approved it, there was a drastic change in the city council membership after that, because the voice of the people. I was sitting in those city council meetings, and I would say 10-1 who got up and spoke was adverse to this going through. City council didn't listen, and they approved it. And then the voters came back and spoke and removed a number of those individuals who approved it and put in people that essentially were not for it. And I think that has been clear throughout the referendum. And I think it's important to note how it's not easy to get something up on referendum. It takes a very mobilized, dedicated group of citizenry to go through the process to even get to the point where we're at. And to me, a developer who sees this type of reaction may want to rethink the choices that they're making and say, well, and maybe for Visionary it's worth it. And granted, that's good for them. They have to do what's best for they are a for-profit business.
Sure.
They have to do what's best for Visionary.
And on that note, they're not going to build something. I mean, this came up while we were speaking with them. They're not going to build something that is going to sit vacant.
No.
What would that be? But there are market pressures here.
Yeah. Well,
there are demographic changes.
Right.
All of these things do factor in, and developers, successful developers factor that stuff in. They won't build if it's not going to sell, or if they. So there is a market for this, right? Even in Providence.
No, there is a market, and we all know that the market is in really high demand right now. People need housing. I mean, clearly they do, and I don't want to be insensitive and say that's not the case, because that absolutely is the case. But also the developers don't control housing prices. That's important. They say they want to. That's not the case. The market does. Yeah. People from California, construction prices, land prices all contribute to that. They may say we're trying to build attainable housing, but they're building market housing.
Kim C. Gardner Institute today with a report showing that half of Utah is basically being priced out of the market.
Yeah.
Median household price.
Yeah.
We have to pause there quickly for the news, but man, I appreciate you guys being here, letting me pepper you with some questions. We did get a couple of questions from callers as well that we'll ask on their behalf in the consideration of time here, so we get as much time with you guys as possible. You able to stick around for at least a few more minutes? Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll keep it going after this quick look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:39, and the news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. A national tech education provider, Full Stack Academy, is partnering with Utah State University to bring tech training boot camps to Utah. Utah State's online director, Kevin Shanley, said Full Stack Academy of New York State reached out to USU, proposing a working agreement that would allow them to reach a specific audience and provide validity to their programs.
So our role is to kind of coordinate with them on marketing and recruitment to bring students in, and we will be offering continuing education credits for students that complete the programs.
Shanley said the new program will attract more adult learners that are looking to retrain or change their career path.
So registrations will start in December, and the boot camps will actually start next spring, like in April or May. And the anticipation is that students will be able to do the program part-time while they work and support their families. And then once they graduate, they should be able to get careers in the tech industry full-time.
Shanley said over 6,400 net new tech-related jobs are expected in Utah, and Full Stack claims a very high placement rate. Opening statements have started in the trial of the 1984 killing of a 12-year-old Colorado girl. She was named by former President Ronald Reagan as one of the first missing children featured on milk cartons across the U.S. A former neighbor of the girl went on trial today on murder and kidnapping charges. Suspect Steve Pankey is a former Idaho gubernatorial candidate. Prosecutors say Pankey's public statements about the case and strange behavior around the time of the killing prove he's guilty. Pankey's lawyer says that the government's circumstantial evidence plus Pankey's overbearing personality and obsession with crime mysteries is not enough to convict him. KVNU News Time is 5:41.
Want to improve the look and comfort of your home? See all the possibilities at U&I Furniture. Update your mattress and sleep better tonight on a Therapeutic Queen Comfort Top mattress for $4.99. U&I is also a full-line Maloof dealer. Add a Maloof adjustable base, 4 style choices there. In U&I's dining room section, lots of different brands with something always new to see. One popular set with a table and 4 chairs, $649. And for the family or living room, all kinds of fun new sofa loves and sectionals. If it's in stock or it's in the showroom, it's ready to take home. There's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, slight chance of rain and snow showers this evening, then a chance of rain and snow showers after midnight, about 40%, low temperature overnight, mid-20s. Slight chance of snow showers in the morning, cloudy, and the high temperature tomorrow in the lower 40s. And then on Friday, partly cloudy then clearing, high temperature around 50. It's been to 47. It's 43 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by Logan Extermination. Voles are settling in for the winter. Let Logan Extermination get rid of them now. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
At Palmer's Metal Mart, you get more than great steel at great prices. You get an amazing customer experience. For almost 30 years, people have chosen Metal Mart for the level of service that comes with the Metal Mart experience. But again, don't take our word for it.
Metal Mart was so professional and informative about an unusual project we had. They kept notes, so no matter whom I came in to talk to, we were all on the same page. I appreciated the professional yet friendly environment I encountered.
Another great customer said,
"So I needed to pick up some tubing to repair a utility trailer, and I placed my order, but unfortunately I gave them the wrong specs. It was totally my fault, and instead of making me eat the cost, Metal Mart gave me the credit towards the right tubing. Great guys, and great customer service."
Come experience the great service and selection at Palmer's Metal Mart, everyone's metal store, with locations in Lehigh and Logan. Metal Mart's team is ready to serve. So if you need metal, get to Palmer's Metal Mart. See you soon.
With a little help from Mother Nature's October snow, Whole Tree Care is slammed, and they're hiring. If you like to work with your hands, give Whole Tree Care a call, 760-6587. They need climbers and groundmen. Call them to clean up your large broken branches and trees, too, or get your trees trimmed before the next snowstorm. So whether you need a job or have a cleanup job for Whole Tree Care to do, call 760-6587. They have a certified arborist, the right equipment, the best cleanup crew, and the most experience. 760-6587.
My name is John Brenchley. Last year, my father, Lynn, passed away. Our family misses him tremendously. From the first phone call we made to White Pine Funeral Services until he was laid to rest, White Pine helped us every step of the way. The staff was there to guide us through the entire process. They were kind, gracious, and their facilities are amazing. White Pine helped to make the difficult situation of losing my dad into a positive experience where we could remember him and celebrate his life.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Who do you turn to if you want to change out your wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove was voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah in the fireplace retrofit category. With the government's wood and pellet investment tax credit in place right now, they can help you navigate the paperwork on select models up to a 26% tax credit. That covers everything to have a new wood or pellet unit installed. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272, online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Oh man, these are important debates. I know everyone has a side, everyone has a preference, and we can all get passionate, sometimes too passionate about these issues. But for everyone out there listening, regardless of where you are, what is being debated right now in Providence City is the debate of Cache Valley, of northern Utah, of all of Utah, parts of Idaho, for the next couple of decades. It's a question of types of housing, locations, green space, open space, planning for the future in a way that you don't end up regretting it 20 years down the road. Home prices, where do people want to live and how do they want to live? So many things at play here, and you've got to try and plan it out as best as possible. A bit like reading a crystal ball. It's going to go as well as possible, but nothing's going to be perfect. So I'm just glad to see this debate happening and the citizens are engaged in it on regardless of where you sit. Proposition 1 is how it's known in Providence. The for side is, short version, basically saying go ahead with this development, and it will include some single-family and more dense housing there in Providence. The opposed to Proposition 1 side, represented here in our studio today by Gary Wilkinson and City Council member Josh Paulsen, that the opposition to Proposition 1 is saying, let's pause here. Let's go back on this. What's developed is developed, but as far as the remainder of this development, some questions we'd like to ask. If Proposition 1 is knocked down on the ballot in November, the land would be in a bit of an annexation limbo at that point, as Josh has explained, and the city would begin the debate of the future of that land from square one. So that's the short version of all of this. And I interrupted both of you as we went to the news there, and Josh, you were talking a bit about the long-term side of this, but also when it comes to Providence and planning. Well, you'd mentioned that one of your regrets in this is that it's referred to as the against Prop 1 side or the no on Prop 1 side, which sounds negative. And you had said, this is actually a positive thing you're trying to represent here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'd describe it as having regrets, but I do think it's important to recognize that we're talking about a particular development in a specific area, and this isn't a yes or no vote against high density, and it's certainly not a yes or no vote against trying to lower the housing prices in Cache Valley. Those of us who live here realize that it's becoming untenable for a lot of people. So I want to be careful not to conflate those. I do think it's clear from my perspective, and Gary and as the others have talked about, that we would like something that was a little more prescribed, a little more committed in this particular area. I think I've expressed that I believe the housing solution is best done with a scalpel and not an axe, in terms of with a little more precision about where we put stuff and where, rather than let's just keep building and throwing more housing in, because as you and I have talked, off there here too, areas like Hiram and North Logan, dealing with
self-created challenges,
and really want to avoid that. And I would like to see that avoided too. When I'm done with this call, I've got to go ahead and drive to the other side of town to the climbing gym to meet my son, and I am not looking forward to driving along our main street, which has become a parking lot between 5 and 6 o'clock.
Traffic has come up in this as well, right?
Again?
Traffic has come up in this as well.
Yeah, that's one. If you look at the infrastructure, and I think one of the challenges that anyone who opposes a specific development faces, or the characterization, is that this is a NIMBY issue. This is always going to be a not in my backyard issue, and put that negative stigma on. But if you can get down into and maybe in some cases that's true, right? Maybe citizens don't really understand the value of density in areas and how that will ultimately help the community and help other people be able to establish themselves in the community, and so on and so forth. And that's not what we're talking about here. We agree that there is a need for that already, and that there is with proper planning and understanding and community support and development working hand in hand, that can happen. But in this particular issue, there is a structural infrastructure issue that with traffic and flow that I don't think was well thought out or addressed in this development, and I don't think there's any proposed solution for it at this point. It's just kind of like, well, it's kind of River Heights issue at some point, because they're the one that's going to bear the brunt of the traffic coming through, and then only a sliver of Providence. So that's kind of one thing that I don't think that I've heard any proposal on in terms of how they're going to address that issue.
Again, it goes back to how many plates are spinning, in all of this type of planning. There are so many ripple effects of every little decision, every move made. Complex is an understatement, I think, when it comes to these types of decisions.
I just want to point out how nuanced it is, too. This is when I had a discussion with our city manager the other day, because I'm very concerned about housing mobility for people, just so you know. Being able to find something and then work up to home ownership. That American dream really seems to be out of touch for a lot of people, because they're a lot of these properties, particularly ones that we see of Providence, condos, townhomes, they're either owned by the developer or they're purchased by investors, and they control rental prices on those, making it even more difficult for people to go ahead and build equity in home ownership. And I think that's a real issue.
And when you're looking at 40% of your budget to own a home,
it's outrageous.
You then don't own a home.
You don't own a home.
I mean, that's what the Kempsey Gardner report was basically saying today, that people aren't buying homes because it would be 40% of their budget.
But this is why it's nuanced. You can take two different types of property here. You could build a split home that has a shared property line, which would be more inclined for individual ownership, or a duplex, which would be more inclined for an investor to purchase and rent. One more likely to encourage home ownership, and one less likely. So there are small little things here that are important details in this process. I do think we generally, and I say this as someone who will be voting no against this development, though, I think we need to be more open to more housing types. I think that ship has sailed, and it's really clear that we have to go ahead and do that.
So you're saying go down this road, but go down this road with a bit more detail and a bit more commitment.
A bit more detail and a little bit and
assurances.
Assurances, absolutely. And I'd like to see it done in a little bit smaller scale projects in neighborhoods, so they don't overwhelm those neighborhoods. And we brought that up at the top of the hour, that this constitutes close to a 20% increase in number of homes. This one development, and not the one under referendum, the whole project. The whole project with one development. That's significant on the north side of town, and I'm not opposed to the housing types. I'm necessarily actually the total density is probably acceptable, but it's a significant enough project. I think we probably better let our foot off the accelerator just a little bit. And unfortunately, what that looks like here is a no vote and inviting the developer to come back and work on something a little bit different with us. And putting that in place. And what I would invite people to do here too is, I drove down in that neighborhood. There's people who bought homes down there, condos, apartments, townhomes, single-family homes. I would hate for that area to become stigmatized here in terms of this is the area that nobody wanted. It's not true. I've driven through there. I saw people. I waved to them when I buy. They're nice people. They're wonderful people. Really, they're Providence residents. They're my neighbors. We're grateful to have them in the neighborhood. Let's not stigmatize that. That's already built. When we talk about this new development, if it's voted no, let's go ahead and do it in a thoughtful, loving, and caring way. It's integrated into our community, and remember, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is building relationships and neighbors here, and that for this particular project, I think we can do that a little differently than we had, and have equally good outcomes. So,
and I think that was proposed from the beginning, is that we're willing to go, before we even get up on referendum, we're willing to go back to the drawing board and discuss with the developer before we have to go through this whole process to try to determine what would work for them as well as those who are opposing it, right?
We did that.
We did do that.
We did that, and the developer said, well, it's unacceptable. You guys do you, and I'll do me. You know what? And unfortunately, we said, well, we're going to go out and get signatures, and that land sat frozen there for 2 years.
So that's how the proposition process.
That's how it got started. So I'd invite residents and I'd invite developers to check their egos and some of their preconceived notions at the door just a little bit. Be a little more flexible. Let's not lock horns like this. I don't think that's the best way to go ahead and work.
And I think Josh's proposal in terms of kind of like a mixed bag of development is, I think ultimately that's the way that a life cycle residency actually truly happens in practicality, is because you put young professionals who have built their homes, and then people who are working into that area together, and they mix and they mingle and they work together, and they start to build an idea of a community of how those things are done and how you grow and how you become successful. I am all for that. And I think that that's a necessary component of a good community. And so there is a place in Providence, in Cache Valley, and I think that's the future of Cache Valley. But I think it takes developers having the foresight, and maybe just a little bit putting a check on what the amount of money they can make, and maybe citizens putting a little bit of check on what their perceptions of what high density is.
Sure.
And that's what a society looks like. Is not everyone's going to, if a person's getting what they want, then something's wrong.
How dare you suggest that we all
make a little sacrifice,
compromise, sacrifice, and change?
That's what we asked for. I don't know.
It's going to be required of all of us here in Cache Valley. That can't be stressed enough. It is just we're so short on time here. In fact, we barely have time to wrap up the hour here. We did have a caller with a question. Caller, apologize we didn't have time for your question today. It was regarding open space. They pointed out there was some open space at the other end that was approved by the city. I think the point there being that there's options, but we've discussed that, right?
What we've discussed it. I would only say that as a city, we're really trying to prioritize the procurement of open space right now. We have tried to buy things from developers several times, and have not been able to do so. We'd still like to. There's not a lot of available land, but I don't know about other cities, but we recognize that open space, the great parks that we have in Cache Valley, the Merlin Olsen parks, they were bought and purchased with foresight. They were preserved there from the beginning. What we need to do right now as cities is start doing that right now and bite the bullet and do that, because that land will not exist any longer. So
goes fast.
So pay for it now. It's one of the few ways we can go ahead and really look out for our children and grandchildren by preserving some open space for them in the future now. And it doesn't always have to be through development. Some of these cities actually really would like to go ahead and have more park space.
Josh Paulsen, Gary Wilkinson, I appreciate you both for taking a full hour of your day to come in and do this. I hope listeners have found it useful, especially if you're in Providence. This will be on your ballot, making a choice for or against Proposition 1. And Josh and Gary here with a very reasonable argument, you have to admit, saying vote no on your ballot. We'll see how this turns out, and we'll talk about it again, I'm sure, before Election Day. Thanks to you both again. To listeners, thank you for tuning in. Dave Ramsey next here on KVNU Logan.
NMLS 1817019.
Want the lowest mortgage rate? Don't go to a bank or credit union. LendRight Mortgage's rates are often at least 0.25% lower than other lenders. Listen to these Google reviews from very happy clients. Mary, I did my due diligence and compared 3 other companies, and none of them could compete with the rates offered by LendRight Mortgage. David, LendRight had the best rate we could find, and we shopped pretty heavily. Megan, they got me a great interest rate, much lower than competitors. Landon, from start to finish, they were great. Other companies couldn't touch their rates. Ron, on top of the superior service, I also got a 1.75% rate. Wow. This is why we confidently offer a $1,000 lowest rate guarantee. Rates in the ones will soon be gone. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com.
Utah's ICUs are full of COVID patients, nearly all of whom haven't been vaccinated. Last week, it took hospital staff an average of 3 hours and 45 minutes to locate an available ICU bed for a patient who needed one. Delays in getting into a hospital aren't just inconvenient, they can also impact the care a patient receives. Please get vaccinated to keep ICU beds open and to help others get the help they need. It's easy to get the vaccine. It's easy to find out more information about the vaccine. Just visit coronavirus.utah.gov.
Election fraud, biological